Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, Trauma Team Racing. If this is your first time here, my name's Scott and I'm a trauma and orthopedic surgeon based here in the United Kingdom with a keen interest in simulated racing. As explained in my last video, I was away for some time. As you can see, I have the post-exam beard, but good news is I've done the exam and I've passed. So we're back here for another fitness video aimed at sim racers, looking at the wrist. If this is your first time here and you find this useful, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. If you really like it, hit the alert button too. So sit back, get ready to be energized. We're going to rehabilitate. Classes in session. Now, as with all my tutorials, I want to break things down into the aims and objectives of what we want to try and achieve in this session. Before I start, what I would point out is although this is aimed at sim racers, this should be beneficial to those who perhaps like the game on a controlling pad, because ultimately this is just looking at wrist health and how best to improve that. So if we look at some aims and objectives for this session, in the first instance I just want to look at some simple bony anatomy so we can understand the complexities of the movement that's happening when we're steering that steering wheel. Secondly, we're going to look at some gentle rehabilitation warm-up exercises to help better prepare us for when we're about to start that big grueling race. Then we'll move on to some wrist strengthening exercises which can be completed with some simple items you should be able to find around your house. And then finally, I want to talk about some tips and tricks that I find, particularly if you're perhaps a little bit older than me, will help you keep that wrist health at its optimum so you can keep racing for longer and pain-free. So, let's get into it. So in order to understand the bony anatomy of the wrist, we're going to borrow one of Arnie's arms. Sorry, mate. So if we just zoom in at this, the wrist is a tremendously complex joint that really needs to be respected. It consists of 27 bones, 27 joints, 34 muscles, and over 100 ligaments and tendons. So I think it's particularly important that we respect it, particularly with regards to what exercise we do to better prepare it, particularly when we're putting it through the grueling exertion of perhaps a very long race on a simulator. Now, if we zoom in on the wrist is comprised of these two long bones here, one called your radius and one called your ulna. Now these articulate, that means join together, with these group of bones. We won't go through them because there's a lot of them, and that's called the carpus. Now these all act together. So if we think this is the back of the hand and this is the front of the hand, we've got a complex system of muscles that act to extend the wrist and bring it back. Now on the front of the hand, or sorry, the front of the forearm, we've got a complex group of muscles that act to flex the wrist. There's also another complex set of movements where, again, with the muscles acting over the wrist joint, the wrist can, what we call in the business, radially deviate, and also in the other direction, ulnar deviate. Now when you combine all these movements into one fluid motion, you can get something called circumduction. And that basically is a quick crash course in the movements and modes of action of the wrist joint. Let's move on. Welcome back everybody to my Fortress of Solitude, and here we're going to be going through some simple warm-up exercises to help your wrist right before you start sim racing. Now, first of all, what I want you to do is just take your wrists and do some gentle circumduction. Now what that's going to do is just going to loosen up the wrist joint and get your wrist prepared to move. Do that for a couple of repetitions or as long as you feel comfortable, and then we're ready to begin. Now for the first instance, what I want to do is we're going to stretch out the muscles in the anterior forearm and the muscles in the dorsal forearm. Okay, so those are the flexors of the wrist, and these are the extensors of the wrist. So for the first exercise, what I want you to do is palms towards the ceiling, gently grab the palm, and then we're going to gently just bend that wrist back, putting some tension on the muscles in the forearm. What you can do is you can gently bring that across, just hold it there for a few seconds. Now what you don't want to do is if it becomes uncomfortable, please stop. Hold that for a few seconds and then repeat with the other hand. Now what I want you to do is we're going to do the same thing but with the palm down. You're going to grasp your palm, gently flex the hand, and again extend that arm out. And what we're doing is we're just stretching the muscles in the extensor part of the forearm. Hold that for a few seconds or as long as it feels comfortable. Give it a good shake, and then repeat with the other hand. The next set of exercises we're going to be doing what we call, this is pronation, and this is supination of the forearm, but this also happens at the wrist. So to start off with, we can start with our palms out towards the ceiling, gently grab the palm, and then just gently just provide a little bit of tension there, just really giving those muscles and ligaments a good stretch. In the next one, we're going to turn the palm so it faces down. Again, grab the hand, and we're just going to gentle bit of tension to help relieve those muscles and provide a little bit of stretch. Again, repeat the exercises for the other hand. Repeat them as many times as you wish until you're nice and limbered up. But again, at any point, if you feel any discomfort, please discontinue. One thing to mention, if you suffer from carpal tunnel, by doing this test and bending the wrist forwards, you may reproduce some symptoms, so you may want to avoid that. But in people who haven't got carpal tunnel syndrome, it'll be absolutely fine. For the next set of exercises to warm up, now what I want to do is we're going to step a little bit closer, and I just want you to look at my hand. Now first of all, we just want to close the hand up. I'm going to stretch the hand out, really giving those intrinsic muscles a good stretch. Again, in, and really stretch those muscles out. So there's lots of muscles in between the fingers that allow us to abduct the fingers, and this is when we adduct the fingers. So we're just getting a good stretch on those muscles. Again, repeat them for the other side. Now then what we want to do is, because sim racing requires grip of the steering wheel, we're going to do a grip, make a fist, give it a bit of a squeeze, and then really stretch those fingers out. Again, give it a good grip, stretch those fingers out. Give it a good grip, stretch those fingers out. Now, it's important to exercise the opposition of the thumb. So what I want you to do is bring your thumb across and just touch the base of your little finger just like that. Bring it across, touch the base of your finger just like that, and do that for a couple of repetitions. Just across and back to where it was. Then what we'll do is just some gentle opposition of the other fingers. So touch it to your little finger, touch it to your forefinger, touch it to the middle finger, touch it to your index finger, and then we're done. Remember to repeat those exercises for the other hand. There's no hard and fast rule about how many you should do, but what I would do is perhaps complete each repetition maybe 5 times, see how you go. If you want to increase it, that's great. If you find some benefit by increasing it a little bit more, that's great too, but the most important thing is if at any point you feel any discomfort, please stop. So, to move on, let's look at some gentle strength building exercises for the forearm and the wrist to help us improve on the simulator. Now for these next set of exercises, what I want you to do is position your arm just overhanging perhaps a table or a chair, or in this case, we're going to use a workout bench. What you want is your wrist just hanging over the edge so it's able to move both in flexion and also in extension. Now for this, what I'd do is, if you're not used to this, I'd start off with something very small, like a low weight, and for this one we're going to be using a can of chopped tomatoes. So, in one hand, what I want you to do is gently grab the can, and this, for the first time, we're going to exercise the flexors of the forearm. So what we're gently going to do is we're going to lower the wrist, letting that can just drop into the fingers, and then curl that back up. Let the can drop, roll it into the fingers, and then roll it back up. Can drop, roll it back up. Now if you have some light dumbbell weights, you can use that instead, or if you wish to graduate to something a little bit heavier, that's all right too. Make sure you repeat it in the other hand, and then what you're going to do is you're going to do it for the extensors of the forearm. So to simply do that, you turn your hand over, and then what you're going to do is let that drop, and then bring it up, really exercising the extensors of the forearm there, and let it drop. Bring it back up, get a good bit of stretch, let it drop again, bring it back up, and then just let it drop again. And what I'd do is I would complete that for a few repetitions, and then you're good to go. Now there is another final exercise you can do, and this is to help strengthen your grip. Now a lot of people have got kind of grip strengtheners. I do have a set, but they can be quite costly. But a good substitute is a tennis ball. So if you want to exercise your grip and build up your grip strength, what you can do is just take the tennis ball in one hand, gently squeeze the tennis ball, and what I do is I just hold it for about 5 to 10 seconds. Hold it there, 4, 5, I'm making it up, 6, 9, 10, and then release. Now you can hold that for as long as you want, and what you're going to find is that it's really working all the muscles in the forearm. Take the tennis ball, put it in the other hand, and again, provide a bit of pressure, hold it, and then when you're done, release. Let's head back to theatre. Now finally, I'd just like to touch upon some tips and tricks that I find particularly useful if we're trying to improve our wrist health on the simulator. Now, if you're a little bit older than myself, you may find that your wrists are particularly sore with regards to what we like to call osteoarthritis or wear and tear of the joint. Now what I find, particularly with patients who suffer with osteoarthritis, is if you submerge your wrists in a bowl of warm water or perhaps the sink, leave them there for about 30 to 60 seconds, perhaps give them a little bit of movement, and then take them out and complete the wrist warm-up exercises, you'll find things are a little bit easier to warm into and will provide you with a little bit more longer-lasting comfort for those rides on the simulator. Now, regardless of your age, I think particularly with these exercises, it's not a one-stop shop. I think you've got to be able to build these into some sort of regular routine. So what I do is I do these before a race, and then perhaps if I'm waiting in a lobby or if I'm in the pit or whether I'm setting something up, maybe after an hour or so, I'll just run the wrist warm-up exercises while I'm waiting and building it into a regular routine. If you build them up into a regular routine, hopefully it should become second nature. And that really concludes everything we're going to talk about the wrist. Now, there are more complex issues which you can talk about the wrist with regards to carpal tunnel, and if you'd like to hear that, please let me know in the comments below. If there's any other particular body part that you have a particular interest in that you want me to cover, again, please let me know in the comments below. If you found this useful, please hit the like button, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. We're trying to grow the channel, and it's really hit off so far, so a big thank you to everybody that has subscribed. A final little word, we are still running the sim racing fitness competition for the 500 subscriber giveaway, and if you go to the video that I will link just up there, you should be able to head to the competition for the details of how to enter. So that concludes this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. So from me, good night, good evening, good morning, bye for now. That's right.